Hello, hello, all. Thank you for joining us again on the Almost Brothers podcast. Hey, will you do us a favor? If this podcast has meant something to you and encouraged you, will you consider becoming a monthly supporter? You could do $3, $5, $8, or $10 a month. What this does is this helps financially support the podcast so that we can continue to put out content and help better serve you. So if you would, down in the show notes, you can click the link, support, and become a monthly member. We love you. New episode coming your way. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Almost Brothers podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about pride and how it can defer you from God's will for your life. Coming up. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Almost Brothers podcast with Michael.
Jeremiah,
that hat. I'm liking it.
I love it.
I'm liking it. I do. I like how it sticks out. You know, the little, what is it?
Cross in the middle?
Yeah, whatever it's called. No, the
embroidery?
Yeah, that's it. That's the word, embroidery. I'm so glad you're on here. I don't know what I do. I mean, I'm such a goofball. Man, today's episode is going to be a good one. This is something that I think internally I've struggled with for a long time, and
me too. From
day to day, still struggle with it. You know, pride, man. So let's go ahead and jump in. I know. With me, mine was always in ministry. Seeing other people kind of be blessed and their ministry grow and be able to do all these amazing things and. For a long time, I was kind of stuck in the same spot or even kind of going backwards. And it really would get to me, man. I'd be on Facebook or on, YouTube or whatever, and I'd see all these amazing pastors or preachers and say, God, why can't that be me, man? Why can't I be doing that? Why can't I have an audience like that and a platform like that? I know you've called me to do something special, but man, why can't I have that? And for a long time, I couldn't understand it, and I couldn't get past it, and I couldn't grow because of that pride and that, looking at other people and judging myself by what they're doing.
Right.
I even had, man, I still to this day, he's a good friend of mine and he's a pastor and a lot of, like me and him would talk, and a lot of, what I'd come up with or what God has spoke through me that we talk about ended up in his messages. Mm-hmm. And for a long time that would bug me.
Yeah.
It would eat at me, and I'd because I'm not getting the credit for it. You know what I mean? And seeing, being a youth pastor for so long and seeing, pastor appreciation days come and go and youth pastors kind of get a bad rap and kind of get overlooked and stuff like that. And to see all these pastors just kind of get these cool things and a special day and blah, 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 and get patted on the back. And then kind of, the youth pastors just kind of sitting in the back, doing a lot of work and not really getting any show for it, man. And it used to eat at me.
Rightfully so. Yeah. I mean, I would think a lot of churches probably do include their youth pastors in on that, but, yeah, I can see where being overlooked does not feel good.
Yeah.
I've been in those situations myself too, and they're never fun. Because you see your talents and your abilities and the hard work you put in, and to not be recognized, sometimes that's very difficult. But like you said, that really stems from our own personal pride more than anything.
Yep.
Because if we're doing it as unto the Lord, then we're receiving our reward from Him.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what people think, but that's really hard to turn off.
Right.
Because we want the acknowledgement. We want that opportunity to have those positions in ministry and do those things like you said. And, the pride thing, that's going to be a good topic for today, man. I'm really excited about digging into this.
Oh yeah.
So how did you, get to a point where you got past a lot of that, or what did you do to deal with that issue?
Oh man. I know a lot of reading, a lot of really digging into to God's word, but also digging into, books and blog posts, things like that people kind of talk about. Man, I heard this one pastor and I cannot remember who it was, but it was awesome. It was, he was kind of explaining messages like, there's nothing you can say that hasn't been said in one form or another before by somebody.
Right.
But he was talking about how a lot of times pastors or preachers or evangelists will kind of use other people's stuff, like maybe a message that they heard from this certain person, and they would, oh man, that's good. And they take it and they tweak it and kind of make it their own and build upon it and add stuff to it or whatever. And it really opened my eyes because, I try so hard to be original with my messages or like, different and just like nothing else I've ever heard, or try to make it just so out there that nobody's ever heard it from anybody before.
Right.
And this pastor said, he said, today's message is straight from the notes of so-and-so, one of his mentors and his other pastors that he looks up to. And it really opened my eyes. I'm just like, wow, this is somebody I look up to. And he's using, he called this other pastor and said, hey, can I use your notes from this sermon? And used it and made it his own. And kind of, he's like, and if you feel like you want to use mine, that's what it's there for. He said, if a pastor gets upset that you use some of their material, they have a pride problem. And I just sat like, it blew me away. Like I sat back and I was like, this is thousands and thousands and thousands of followers, and to hear him say, no, use my stuff. I use other people's stuff. We're all in this together.
Right.
And he made such a good point. First I was blown away by that, but then he made such a good point. He said, we're all reading God's word. We're all using God's word and all these people who wrote the Bible, we're using their words anyway.
Right.
So none of this is original. It's all coming from them. So, it really did. It blew me away, and it opened up my eyes to say, you know what? It's okay to be inspired by someone else. No, you're not just going to straight blatantly rip off somebody else's stuff, because then that's not God speaking through you. That's, somebody else's words.
Yeah. And
maybe it's not, it's not the right message for whoever you're speaking to. You're just picking a good message from somebody else and just regurgitating what they said. But that right there really opened up my eyes to a lot of it, and to, hey, you don't have to. Another pastor also, he said, man, many times you'll see, on YouTube or whatever, you'll see these pastors that they just give this great message, but everybody tries to hit that home run. He said, but being a pastor, being consistent day in and day out, is a lot of singles, and every now and then getting a big, just awesome, crazy message where everything comes together and you get props and you get all these things. But a lot of it is just messages to, just day in consistency, keeping with it. And I would always be swinging for every time I got a chance to speak. I would try to just give the most mind blowing message and have all this going on. And it's like, no, you need to, first of all, pray and get it together and say, God, what do you want to speak through me today? And oh man, I'd just be juggling props and trying to make it just so cool and so crazy. And it's like, man, I just want to speak what you want me to speak at that time.
Pastor Tim, he mentioned that in the early service. He said that, he can remember times where it took him hours to try to get together a sermon, and he'd be struggling. And he's like, I didn't pray about this. And, he'd pray about it, and then, the message would just come like that,
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing, is to make sure that we're hearing from the Lord when we're preparing a message or preparing to deal with people, even at the workplace. Say you've got a coworker that sits at the desk next to you, and, you're trying to figure out how to minister to that person, or the words to say, because they're going through a troubling time or they've got something going on, without the prayer and asking the Lord, to give you the words. What you come up with, may have little effect, but it's not going to have the effect of what something that, spirit-led advice or spirit-led words will have.
Yeah. So now my question for you is pride in a relationship. How, and this is another hard one for me, is when I think I'm right, I'm standing firm on it, and I'm not wanting to back down, but a lot of times that pride gets in the way of growth. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that when when maybe you're having an argument where you know you're not in the wrong, but you know that the best way to go at that argument is to humble yourself and say, you know what, maybe I need to look at things from your point of view. Maybe I need to understand, you know, what you're going through and how you're seeing it. How do you handle that as a newlywed?
Well, this is something that I'm learning, because I also think that I'm right a lot, and I'm not always right, but there's times whenever you think I am right, you know, and from every way I look at this, I'm still right. And it's hard to back down from that. But whenever you're in a relationship, it's about compromising, and it's about putting yourself in the other person's shoes. And it's about looking at it, not from your point of view, but from theirs, and seeing how it's affecting them, and maybe understanding what they've been through in the past that has led them to this point to have these, you know, this feeling or this, you know, whatever's going on. And so I think that's critical, is just being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yeah.
And, it's not always about being right either.
You
know, we can be right and cause a lot of damage in our relationships. So sometimes I think it just takes stepping back and like I said, looking at it from their point of view, and then, you know, kind of apologize for that prideful behavior, you know, because there's nothing harder to deal with, because my wife and I are both stubborn. She's not, you know, she's always right too. Yeah. So when you get two people together like that, you have some conflicts that can go unresolved, but in the midst of that, you know, it just becomes, it's not about me being right and you being wrong. It's just, you know, maybe we're both being wrong in this.
Right.
You know, and I think that setting aside our pride is very difficult, because it makes us feel like we're wrong, or
you lose the argument.
Like you lose the argument.
Yeah.
Or if you're backing down, it's like, man, I lost that fight. You know, it's not always about winning, you know, and sometimes conceding a battle like that, you know, and setting your pride aside is winning in the long run. Because most of the time it's not an issue that's of great importance anyway. Yeah. And if it is something of great importance, then it's something that needs to be resolved healthily, you know, and not one side coming out feeling like a loser.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what, you know, in all this that I think is the big caveat to take away, is that being right doesn't mean you win.
No.
Or being wrong doesn't mean you lose. You know, it really is a compromise. And I think that's why, you know, that's why the divorce rate is so high anymore. You know, I think it's over 50% now. It's like 53% or something like that, because, you know, we're being raised now. Our children are being raised that you're right, you're great, you're awesome. No matter what you do, you're super.
Right. Do what makes you happy.
Yes.
You know,
pat on the back.
Put yourself first.
So there's no compromise. There's that's why, you know, I talk to the Randalls a lot. You know, these are my boys, man.
No E.
Don't, man, I got in trouble the other day. Jamie's seen it. I still had the E on my phone. She's like, why is there an E on there? I'm like, I know, I just haven't took it off yet. But, and then we had a barbecue and Richard and them came over, and you know, those little like sponge letters that the kids will play in the bath. There was an E like in the dirt. He was like, oh, I found my E. It was so funny. Like, oh my gosh. I was talking to them. They're like, man, it's so hard for us. Like, they act like they're 30 years old. Like, it's so hard for us to find a relationship and really stick with it. And it's like, well, you've got to understand that it's nothing but compromise forever. Right. If you've got a problem with saying, you know what, I may be right, but you know what? Okay. If you got a problem with that, you're gonna struggle for a long time until you realize that, hey, you know, you got to pick your battles. You've got to understand when to say, you know what, even though I think you're wrong, I'm going to listen to what you have to say, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to try to grow from it. Even though I don't feel like I'm wrong in this situation, but I'm going to try to grow from it and learn. And that's what still to this day I'm working on is growth. I want to grow. I want to be better today, a better husband today, a better father today than I was yesterday. So, just little things about my wife, what I'm trying to learn about her, and what I'm trying to understand, see through her eyes, because I think it's so different as a woman, man, just the way you see the world and the way you look at your husband as opposed to the way that we look at them, you know, and a lot of times something will come up to where you're like, oh man, you know what? I don't feel like I did anything wrong, but I'm going to take your word and I'm going to try to change, and I'm going to try to just be better in that, and however you feel, and it doesn't mean backing down and just completely being what they want you to be, or just, yes, oh yeah, a yes man, but just that compromise and being able to say that, so, but yeah, I know with me, the biggest one is ministry, man. That's something that's been hard for me to get over and to really dig in and pray with God about, because it's a little bit easier for me to compromise in my relationship and say, you know what, I'm going to grow in this. But, I've been, man, it's been so long. I've been, in and out of ministry, and it's just like, God, I feel like I should be, you want to rush it. You want to hurry. You're like, God, I know where you have me. I know where you want me, but I'm not there yet. And we want to rush God's timing. Mrs. Blog was awesome this morning. Just kind of
very good. The
timing of God. And we try to push it, and we try to rush it, and we try to hurry up. And that's our pride saying, God, I don't trust your timing. I want to do it.
Right.
And I'm so bad at that, man. I'm so bad at trying to get things going before God says, all right, they're ready. Now move.
Right.
Pastor was talking about, delayed obedience is disobedience. Rushed obedience is disobedience. We try to rush it. We try to push, and God, I need it now. I want it to happen now. And God's like, no, just wait. I talk about, how long it's been just for me to be able to do this, for me to be able to day in and day out, be able to come up here and do ministry. It's been a long haul, man. And it's not always been the easiest thing trying to get over that hump of, God, I know what you've got for me, but I don't see it happening. So we want to give up. We want to get angry at everybody around us. And we, especially for me, I wanted to focus on those that have what I see God's got for me. So I get angry at them. I won't lash out and say things about them, but in my heart, I'm bitter towards them, or I'm angry at them. And God's had to really deal with me with that and say, hey man, like, I've got something for you. It's not what they look like. It's not what they're doing. It's for you. Just wait and trust.
Right.
It's like, when the slaves got taken out of Egypt, man, and they're, well, hold up, this isn't what we expected. Like this is what we wanted. And I could just see God like, oh my goodness, here we go.
Yeah. And the opposite of the whole pride thing is humility. And so living, a humble life, that's difficult. I know it's difficult for women, but I know it's especially difficult for men because we're supposed to be the leaders of the household and the strong, the strong personality and the breadwinner and all that stuff. I mean, I know a lot of that's changing in the times we're in now, but it's still, I think biblically, men are supposed to be the head of the household. Yeah. And there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that. So in taking on that responsibility, sometimes we're like, well, look, if I'm running this thing, then we're going to do it my way.
Yeah.
And our pride will slip in there, and we'll start doing things in our own way and in our own strength rather than depending on God. Yeah. And I think that's where it gets a little bit dangerous and a little bit sketchy for us. But so on the humility thing, what to you is like the biggest sign for you that you're, say that you're dying to self daily and you are being humble, how do you know, how can you tell that you're actually achieving that? Yeah.
Oh man, I know what I've strived to do, and what I've noticed myself doing a lot more is encouraging, trying to encourage those around me that even if they're, they've got this big congregation, or they're a pastor, they're known all over town, still encouraging those people. Mm-hmm. That's when I know that God has been working on me, and that it isn't looking at them going, man, why can't I have that? Why I wish I had that. It's help push them forward. The more we help others push forward, the more we're getting pushed forward. So, and realizing that something doesn't always have to come back to me. It doesn't have to benefit me. Just because I'm doing something doesn't mean I have to get a pat on the back. So a lot of times when I'm doing the behind the scenes stuff that nobody knows about, that nobody sees, and not I can catch myself not wanting recognition for that. So I'm like, okay, God, I know you're working on me because I'm not looking for somebody to say, hey, good job, awesome, you know. Right. I heard another pastor before. He said every time he'd do a message, he would count the, hey, great message. He said God spoke to him one day and said, if you have to get a great message after it, that means they were expecting lower than what you gave them. If you're not getting, that, and people, just, hey, love you, and then head out, then you're meeting the expectation, you're giving them what they expect out of you. So you should take that as a sign, hey, I'm doing good. It's kind of that, if you don't hear from your boss, but only when you're doing something wrong and you don't hear from them very often, well, that's good. You don't have to get a pat on the back. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Right. It's like, congratulations for doing what we're paying you for, I guess. It's like, but many times as humans, our flesh wants that. We want that, that, hey, pat on the back, good job, attaboy. Right. But I catch myself not seeking out for that, like the Bible says, is if that's the reward you're looking for, that's all you're going to get.
Right.
That pat on the back of that good job and thumbs up or high five. But I see myself just wanting to do these things just to do them. God, I know it needs done, so I'm going to try to do it. Even to a fault, every now and then I try to take too much on my plate, but I really do just try to do it with no regards to what I'm going to get back, no regards to anything that's going to happen for me. So I think that's the biggest indicator that, hey, I'm growing a little bit in this walk, but it's a daily thing, because, man, I feel like I've wasted so much time throughout my life that I can't get back, and that I can't fix, but I can only just imagine, like, man, where would I be now if I would have stayed the course and just, moved when God said move, but not much you can do, man. Just try to strive forward and grow every day.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
How about you in your marriage? How do you know you're making strides in that pride category? I know for me,
am I making strides?
Right. Yeah. That's what I feel like. I'm like, am I really? Because it's hard for me to ask James, like, hey, babe, like, how am I doing? Like, what do I need to change? Something, like, how am I doing? Because I know you're awesome. Like, she won't really, until it's a big blow up argument, she won't open up or ask that, or I won't even ask her that. So it's hard to gauge, hey, am I being a better husband today than I was yesterday? So. Right.
I think what I'm learning is it's not always compared to like the happiness in the relationship. I think as any relationship, there's going to be conflicts, and there's going to be things that forces you to shift and to move and to change some things. And so, I mean, I don't know. I used to just think as long as we're happy, we're getting along, we're having fun, and, kids are happy, everybody, happy wife, happy life kind of stuff was the indicator for how we were doing. Yeah. But lately I'm noticing that just because, like you said, it's smooth sailing doesn't mean that under the surface everything is good. And so we've been, because eventually those things are going to come out and you're going to have to deal with them. Yeah. And so that's what I think, that's kind of where my wife and I are at right now. There's just some little things, there's, and a lot of it's just dealing with past hurts and things that have, that we're still trying to, I mean, marriage is tough, I don't know if anybody's told everybody that's unmarried that, but it's tough, and so it's you're not always happy with one another, but you always love one another. And in that you're pushing each other to change. We've been watching the Netflix series with Jordan, The Last Dance. I don't know if you've seen it yet. Oh yeah. Super good. Yeah. And that guy he was a jerk, man, but he pushed people to be the best that they could possibly be. And it was rarely pretty. Yeah. I mean, he was rough on people, and I'm not saying that we need to be rough on our wives like that, but I think we do need to be urging our wives, and our wives need to be urging us to change the things in us that are holding us back and are keeping us from being the best that we can be. Yeah. And all that starts with our relationship with the Lord. That you've seen the triangle where You have you and your wife, and then you have God up at the top of the pyramid. And as you grow closer to God, you grow closer to one another. That's really the way it is.
Yeah.
And so whenever I feel like our relationship is kind of on the rocks a little bit, it's always directly connected to my relationship with the Lord and what the status of that relationship is.
Yeah.
It's always connected. There's never been a time whenever I feel like, man, I'm on fire for God. I am as close to God as I've ever been in my life, and I am far from my wife.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that to me is like the biggest thing.
Oh yeah. Especially when you're, you know, like the Bible says, equally yoked. You're both chasing after the same thing, because I know
I can't imagine doing it unequally yoked. I can't imagine trying to drag my wife to church and, you know, try to talk, you know, convince her to give her heart to the Lord. I mean, I can't imagine how that would be, you know, and that's why it's important. That's what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Because, you know, it would be like that if you're in that kind of relationship where you're chasing after God and they're getting farther away from God. Man, I can't, you know, it would be like, God, the closer I get to you, the farther I feel away from them. But that's the importance of kind of, you know, doing it together and being in faith together. But I have seen, you know, like my grandma and grandpa, you know, he was so far, you know, he was a drunk and really, really troubled, you know, had problems with that. And she just stood steadfast and just kept pushing and finally got him out of that. So they, you know, grew together and the relationship with the Lord. But, man, just being able to communication, good Lord have mercy. It's so hard. It's so hard. Because for me, when we start communicating, I start getting upset, and I've got a big mouth anyway and a loud voice. So I get excited, and I may not be angry, but it sounds like I'm angry because I've got a loud voice. And what'll happen is then she'll say, well, why are you getting upset? And I'll say, I'm not getting upset. Yes, you are. And then I start getting upset when she's telling me that I'm upset when I know I'm not. And so that communication, it begins to, a snowball begins to start. Mm-hmm. So I have to really just like calm down. Like, you know, we were talking about that anger last episode, if you haven't heard it.
Oh man.
So good. But oh my gosh, she keeps throwing that at me too. Like, you need to listen to your episode again.
Oh, I know.
Get out of my face with that. But yeah,
we're never going to do an episode on patience.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Like, did you listen to your episode? I'm like, did you? And then she hits me with the whatever.
Oh no. I heard she doesn't ever say that.
Yeah, right. That's what she says. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that communication, man, is hard, and it doesn't get any easier. You know, there's always something to communicate about that's hard. There's always something that you're going to get angry about in the middle of communicating, but it's the most important thing in a relationship, and that's our relationship with God. You know, same thing. It's the most important part is communicating. Talk to him, read his word, pray to him, you know. And we wonder why all hell's breaking loose and we haven't talked to God in months.
Right.
Like, I don't understand.
Well, and like we were saying, you know, the humility with the Lord, where when he does speak to us, that we listen because we know he knows best.
Yeah.
Whenever I believe that my ideas are grandiose and they're better than, you know, anything going on around me, then there's nothing that can God can't work in me. Yeah. When I feel like that I know best and my ideas are greatest, and then the Lord can't work in me. And so I guess the humility thing probably gets harder the older I get too.
Yeah.
You know, because I think when you're young, you kind of realize you don't know it all.
Right.
But whenever you get older, you're like, well, I've been there, I've done that.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've tried it this way. I know the results. And so you get a little bit more set in your ways, you know, like the old dog and new tricks thing.
Oh yeah.
But the Lord is constantly wanting to move us out of that comfort zone and show us that, you know, maybe the way we looked at it forever isn't the way it is.
Yeah.
And so, you know, back to the whole pride thing, you know, our pride will keep us from our eyes being opened if we don't have a mindset of the humility, you know what I mean? That they're open to that.
Yeah. But, oh yeah. And I think kind of change. I don't want to say changing with the times, because, you know, God's words stand steadfast forever. You know, it's the same yesterday, today, and forever. But to change in that mindset, because, you know, say my grandparents, when they were kids, you know, it was the man had the job, the wife stayed home with the kids. Like that was the norm, if you call it that. And now it's very, very more widespread where, both parents, the man and wife, both have jobs, or, there's some instances where the man stays home, with the kids every now and then, and stuff like that and it's the same in our relationship. We've got to realize that if you've been married, 20 years, on day 7,000 is going to be different than day 10. So you have to be able to grow in that. And that comes with that being humble and being able to say, you know what, things are changing. I need to change. I need to change the way I look at this situation. It could be the same situation from 20 years ago, but it may be a different outlook on it, maybe a different way to look at it, or a different way to see that other person's perspective, because things have changed a little bit. Society has changed. Maybe your situation in the marriage has changed, so we've got to understand that. For me, the hardest part was when Jamie, when I hurt my back and Jamie was the primary breadwinner of the household. That was the hardest thing for me, to completely switch off from working 50 hours a week to at home with the kids, not being able to really get up and get around. That was hard. And that caused a lot of strain in our relationship, because I wasn't used to not doing anything. I felt worthless. I started getting depressed, and, the kids are driving me crazy, and I'm just not used to being at home all the time. You can only watch so much TV. Like, it's like, good Lord, have mercy. So we've got to realize that we have to grow every single day, because if we try to just, hey, I'm going to do better. What is it? The New Year's resolution. I'm going to do better this year than last year. Well, there's a lot of growing in between that you should have done. That makes it a whole lot easier than just saying, now I'm going to change. Instead, if you just go every day and say, how can I grow today than yesterday?
That's good.
It's such an easier transition. So you transition into that better person a lot easier than saying, oh man, this is a big problem, I've got to change.
Right.
Now I've developed some bad habits. So I think that humble yourself daily is something that we need in every aspect of our life, our job, our marriage, our ministry, and just life in general. We look at a lot of these teens and they come up with these ideas, and we want to be so quick to say, no, I know better than you do. When really, in all realities, a lot of them got a better grip on what's going on in society than we do, because they're in it,
Right.
So we've got to humble ourselves, stop looking at, at age, say, oh, this is an old person, they know better than the young, or, young people, stop looking at the old people, say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. We've got to humble ourselves and see everybody's perspective. And, when it comes to that in a given situation. So, I think that's the key to it all is like you said, being humble and saying, you know what, I may think I'm right, but I'm going to listen to what you have to say and try to apply it in some way, shape, or form. So,
yeah, we can always hear it, chew it up, spit out the bones, however that saying goes. But, you can always learn something from other people. There's been a lot of people in my life throughout the years that have spoken to me, or I've heard a message, or things have happened. I've got that. You've seen the little book I carry around that has all the, old sermon notes and things like that in it, or just from classes I was in. And, those are just good little nuggets that I've collected. And, if someday I've, ever hit in a position where I, need to put them together and come up with something good, it's not going to be my words, like we started the show with, that won't be my stuff. That's a lot of stuff that I gathered over the years, but it's stuff that was important to me and stuck out to me. And I think those are the things that are easily shared because they meant so much to us. And when we share those with people, then they see how important they were to us, and since we're coming from experience and from a place where we've been there, gotten through that, this is what helped me. Then when you offer that advice to somebody or that help, then it's received and it's accepted. And I think if you approach that humbly and just honestly, with people, then it's effective.
Oh yeah. Man, that's good. Yeah. Oh, I love that little book. Yeah. When you show me some stuff like, oh yeah. And you start flipping and try to find I had this one written down.
It just seems like every time we're talking, man, there's just things I can think of, that I've written down in the past and that I can go back and reference. And
and use it, apply it, man.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Sometimes when I'm struggling, man, I'll go to that, and, having written it down, it's like it's in my brain better.
Yeah.
I remember it. I'm like, I don't know where I wrote it down, but I wrote it down, and I'll start digging through that stuff. And then I'll come across other stuff that's relevant to what I'm in right now. And some of that stuff I didn't even understand at the time. I just wrote it down. I knew, Holy Spirit was like, this is important, write it down. It's something within me is like, you got to write that down. And didn't mean much at the time. Now, years later, looking at it, I'm like, that has a whole lot of meaning to it now.
Oh, yeah.
To what I'm going through, what I've been through. And, it's just good.
Heck yeah, man. Well, any final thoughts?
Oh, man, I really don't have much today. I'm just, it's nice out. It's finally not so hot.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Man,
I tried to get you golf with me last week and couldn't get you out of bed.
Yeah, I like everything being kind of chaotic because I feel like I'm getting more accomplished, but sometimes I'm like, Michael, you need to stop trying to just load all this down in one day. So it was
right after the anger episode. So I was going to give you a chance to apply that.
Yeah, it was. Oh my goodness, because it was Wednesday, and I had finished getting my message, and we had to worry about getting stuff for the youth. So we had to go shopping and get all that, and then get food cooked, and then I was up here trying to get work done, and then get a new message recorded, and so it started adding up. After a while, and I was like, man, that sounds great, but it's 7 a.m. and I've got all this going on. It's like, man, but you really don't. I'm going to go with you, but I'm just warning you, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good at all. A lot. You might as well just get used to that because I'm going to be having a lot of that going on. And we need a bucket of balls.
Oh, okay. Well, I just ordered another 75 off eBay. We're good.
Okay. They're not they're expensive. Okay.
They're called getaway balls.
Okay, cool. Because it's gonna be bad, man. Which I wish we had a driving range to where you don't have to worry about
Me
that.
too.
Me too. I can just get out there and because it's bad, man. It's bad. I got too much of a baseball swing.
Right.
So it is just everywhere. Was it going to the right? Is that slice?
That's a slice, yeah.
Okay. And then the other one is a hook.
Yes.
Look at that. I'm getting there. Tiger Woods, y'all. Get some.
All right. Well, hey, thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has been Michael and Jeremiah on the Almost Brothers podcast. If you don't have a home church, come down to the Lighthouse in Dexter, 8:30 in the parking lot, 10 o'clock inside. We're like family around here. Love y'all.
Love you.